Hey everybody, it's You Had to Ask, the show where I answer your questions. And actually, before we get to the questions this week, there's a little bit of unfinished business from last week that I want to pick up and talk about briefly. My friend Kim pointed out when she watched the video last week that when I named my favorite musical artists, that I didn't really name any female artists. Bit of an oversight on my part because I am such a sexist. And I wanted to correct that because there are so many great female musical artists that I do enjoy, that I really value their work, and their music means a lot to me. And I left them out just for no defensible reason. And just in the interest of giving a more complete answer to the "what music do you dig" question, I need to mention artists like Amy Mann or Cassandra Wilson, or Billie Holiday and Sarah Vaughan, or Memphis Minnie, one of the great female blues musicians of all time. She actually wrote and recorded the original version of When the Levee Breaks, which then Led Zeppelin recorded themselves like 40 years later, and it's one of my favorite Led Zeppelin songs. The original version, co-written and performed by the great Memphis Minnie. Who else? Emmylou Harris, an amazing singer. And her solo work, plus her work with Graham Parsons in the 70s, is just some of my favorite music ever. Alison Krauss. Did I mention Ella Fitzgerald? And most of all, the one that I feel the shittiest about leaving out is Neko Case. Neko Case, whether she's performing, recording as herself or as a member of her band, the New Pornographers, either way, she is just a phenomenal singer and a great songwriter. By far my favorite female musician, if you choose to draw that line, of anybody working today. She's just absolutely the best there is. An incredible voice, just rich and pure and full of character, and she uses it to sing such interesting songs. So it was a crime for me not to mention Neko Case in my music answer last week. So consider that oversight corrected. I figured the best way to handle it would be to underline it and draw more attention to it at the beginning of this video. So, first question this week comes from John Torrance 67, who asks, what kind of food do you like? Any particular region or nationality? Also, can you cook? And also, there's another food-related question. Gazder asked what my favorite sandwich is. I don't think I really favor any particular nationality or region of cuisine. I mean, I'm not really a foodie in that way. I'm not like I'm not a connoisseur, you know. I like Chinese food, and I do draw a slight distinction between like a Chinese place that you might see at like the local strip mall and a really nice Chinese place. But I like that. I like Thai food. There's a really nice Thai place that some of the Neon Reel gang went to last year in Winchester, about 40 or 50 miles from here, that was just beautiful. But in general, no, I don't have like strong preferences for like, I love French or I love Italian, or I just don't know that much about it to have those kind of strong opinions. And yeah, I can cook sort of, if it's not too challenging. I'm great with a crock pot. I can fry an egg like nobody's fucking business. I wouldn't want to get too adventurous with it. I'm not like a chef by any means. But yeah, I know my way around a kitchen enough that I can do all right. I don't have to rely strictly on, you know, stuff out of a box or going to Wendy's or whatever. But I'm not like a great cook. And as for my favorite sandwich is a Reuben. You show me a place that will make you a good Reuben, and that place has got a customer for life in me, my friend. I love me a good Reuben. And there are places around here, around my general area, there are 2 or 3 places where you can go to get a really decent Reuben. There was a place down the road here that used to make a great Reuben, then they changed hands. They have a new owner now. They don't make the Reuben anymore, but it was the best Reuben I've ever had in my life. They chunked the corned beef instead of slicing it, and something about that just, oh God, it was great. Can't beat a Reuben. Legion 1A, I had to ask what you think about this. An accused witch was burned alive in Papua New Guinea in front of hundreds of witnesses on February 8th, where a 2005 census showed that 97% of the population is Christian. Yeah, you posted a link to that in a previous video as well, Legion 1A, and it's a shocking story. And it's one of those things where you do have to sort of look at the calendar and go, holy shit, like it's 2013 and someone was just burned as a witch. It's a really shocking story, and but in another way, it's not very shocking because isn't that pretty much exactly how Christians in Europe behaved prior to the scientific revolution and the Enlightenment? I mean, is that dirty pool to point that out? That before there was such a thing as modern moral philosophy and scientific literacy, that's exactly how Christians behaved all the time. Stimuli, dear Steve. So you're into wrestling. What's your take on this new Tea Party bad guy character in the WWE named Jack Swagger? I thought the McMahons and wrestling fans in general were conservatives, so why do you think this character was introduced? Will he disappear quickly, or could he possibly become really popular like John Cena strangely did? And Paragon Protege also asked about the new Swagger gimmick and posted a link to the video that Jack Swagger and Dutch Mantel, Zeb Coulter, his manager, made calling out Glenn Beck. And I'm torn about it. I'm torn about the whole thing. As I said on the 5 Stupid Things video where I mentioned this and Swagger's DUI arrest, it's a good heel gimmick in the sense that it's different from the usual heel gimmicks that WWE has relied on in the past. Traditionally, a good heel gimmick or a popular heel gimmick or a heel gimmick that the company would really get behind and push the guy with in WWE was something like a really smart guy. You know, that made you a heel if you were really smart, or if you were from another country, that made you a heel. And they still do that. You know, they're doing that right now. One of their best heels in the company right now is Damien Sandow, whose gimmick is that he's really smart. You know? And Antonio Cesaro, another one of their best guys, who's an amazing wrestler and a great performer, and he's doing like the evil foreigner gimmick, you know. So these things, they are often used and they often work very well, but it is, when you think about it, it's like, wow, all the bad guys are smart guys and foreigners. It's a little, you know. So it's nice to see a Tea Party guy being pushed as a heel, and the strange thing is that it's hard to figure out why they're doing this now when the Tea Party is not really a topical issue anymore. The Tea Party is kind of passé, unless you're really super into conservative politics. I mean, you don't see the Tea Party mentioned in mainstream media very much at all anymore, and their impact in the previous, the most recent election was far less than it was in the 2010 midterm election. It just seems like a weird time to be trying to push buttons using the Tea Party. And I think the reason they're doing it is because their world champion right now is Alberto Del Rio, who is from Mexico, and up until very recently was a Mexican aristocratic heel, and now they've turned him babyface, and I don't think the babyface turn is really catching on very much. I mean, he's really good in the ring as a babyface, but as a character, he's not quite. He just doesn't have very much to grab onto. There's not really a reason to cheer for him, other than he's a good guy now and he's fighting the bad guys. So maybe they're trying to go for the racism, immigration thing to try and push the fans to his side. I don't know. The Glenn Beck thing I didn't really like because, again, just like with Tea Party people in general, who gives a fuck about Glenn Beck anymore? Why are you even acknowledging that Glenn Beck said anything about the gimmick? You know, why not just let Glenn Beck do whatever he wants? The audience for Raw is so many times greater than the audience for Glenn Beck, especially now when nobody fucking watches him and listens to him anymore. That it's just puzzling why they're even paying attention to him and what they think they will gain by calling out Glenn Beck. So I don't know. I like Swagger. I don't think he's a great worker, but he's young and he's relatively new, and you know, he's someone that they should try to push for the future. It kind of shows that their wellness policy is ultimately a joke if he's apparently not going to be punished at all for being arrested for DUI and marijuana possession, because it doesn't look like his push is slowing down at all. But he's, you know, as a wrestling fan, he's a new guy and he's a good guy, and I hope he does well with it. But I have my doubts. 88 Merc, if you could add a sport to the Olympic Games, what would it be and why? I would probably put baseball back in again. If you look through the history of baseball in the Olympics, it's been added and subtracted 2 or 3 times in the last 100 years or so. And I would add it and just keep it in because I'm a baseball fan. I like baseball. And I would probably make it like an amateur thing, you know, only use college players or maybe, you know, minor league players. Like nobody from an active major league roster could play, you know, something like that. Because I just think it's just nice to see different people. You know, how many different versions of the World Baseball Classic do you need? Jay Whitmore, if you had the first overall pick in a dead rock musician fantasy band draft, who would you take to start your band? That is so easy. I would choose Freddie Mercury. Wouldn't even have to think about it. Freddie Mercury would be my #1 draft pick. The best frontman in the history of rock and roll. Amazing voice, amazing stage presence. Fucking Freddie Mercury. Poor Cicero, what do you think the Republican Party can try to do, notice I said try, to get out of their pit of ideological stagnancy and improve their obsolete image/message? I'm not saying they will pull it off. I'm just wondering how you'd go about doing it. Well, but the first thing they have to do is recognize that their ideology is not going to win them elections. I mean, they seem to want to become this ideologically pure party. I mean, I just saw on the news the other day that they didn't invite Chris Christie to CPAC. And I know CPAC is not the Republican Party. They're separate organizations, but CPAC is a very influential group and a very high-profile event in the calendar year for Republicans. And Chris Christie is not only a Republican, but he actually has won popular elections and is a very popular figure within his state. So you would think he would be someone they would want to put right up in the foreground for their party, and they didn't even invite him. Sarah Palin's going to be there, who is a loser. Mitt Romney's going to be there, who is a loser. They're going to invite all these people who have lost elections, and they're not going to put one of their guys that is a winner right out front and say, here, this is our guy. And that doesn't make sense to me. It's like they would rather be an ideologically pure party of losers than a slightly compromised or moderated party as far as the ideology goes that can actually win elections. So they're going to have to adjust that way, you know, and they're going to have to acknowledge, as they're starting to with the immigration reform, they're going to have to acknowledge that the demographics of the party are going to have to finally start to progress. They're not going to be able to keep winning national elections just by scaring old people and demagoguing gays and sort of indirectly demagoguing blacks and Latinos. They're going to have to bring people like that into the party. And in order to do that, they're going to have to give those people a reason to vote Republican. So basically, they're going to have to make a lot of changes. And I don't think they're really interested in doing that. And I don't care, because I'm not a fucking Republican. But if I were a Republican and I cared about seeing my party represented in national politics in the next 20, 30, 40 years, that's something I would be very concerned about. Tis no gods. You are quite familiar with movies, directors, music. Question, do you enjoy art museums, science museums, and the like? If you do you have favorites? I promised my kids that someday we'd go back to see more of these Smithsonian exhibits, someday when money's not so tight. Yeah, I live within an hour or so of Washington, D.C., so the Smithsonian is literally right there. And I've never been to New York, so I've never seen any of like those great metropolitan museums, but the Smithsonian is a hell of a place to visit. All of those museums right within walking distance of each other there on the National Mall. And I mean, when I was a kid, I loved of course, the Natural History Museum, and the Air and Space Museum is probably my all-time favorite museum. I tried to get into the Air and Space Museum last year when I was in D.C. for the Reason Rally, but I just didn't have time. I mean, I wanted to be at the rally, and then after the rally was over, I wanted to go home, so I didn't really have a chance to visit any of the museums. But I would like to go back at some point soon. I would like to try and make it back this year sometime to see the museums, and the Air and Space Museum is at the top of my list. The National Art Gallery is amazing. All of those Smithsonian museums. If you live within traveling distance of Washington, D.C., and you don't try to make it to the Smithsonian museums every once in a while, I think you're really cheating yourself, because it's and that whole area is just such a national treasure. And even here in Washington County, we have a really nice little art museum in Hagerstown, in City Park. It's a nice little art museum. My wife and I go there occasionally, and a lot of it is local artists. But they also have some really interesting pieces from more well-known artists as well. For instance, they actually have, I have no idea how they got their hands on them, but they have a really impressive collection of small sculptures by Rodin. It's really nice to see when they have them out on display. So yeah, I love museums. I love museums, and I wish that there were more of them around. Wyvern Lord 23, J.J. Abrams, Quentin Tarantino, choose. Quentin Tarantino. Sorry, J.J. Diabolical Overlord, so what's with Toby Benson's differing political views? Toby Benson is, for the most part, is a libertarian, and you'll have, I mean, that's his views are his own, to be honest. I get the impression that he is a libertarian because he wants to be able to own guns and use drugs without being hassled, which I think is the reason a lot of people are libertarians, even though they make a big deal about the economic thing. Come on, come on, guys. Radical Bacon, what's your favorite question that you haven't answered? And how big is your penis? The answer to your first question is your second question. Thank you for that, by the way. In all honesty, I have never felt the need to measure. And I think I'm safe because I've also never felt the need to buy a sports car. So I think I'm good, whatever that number is. I think that's okay. Cyborg Atheist, what is the story behind that picture at the end of all your videos? The picture of me in my Johnny Cash shirt, passed out in extreme close-up. That's what that is. It's just me pretending to be asleep / passed out so that there can be a funny picture at the end of my videos. That's the story. There's no real. It's totally posed fake horseshit. That's the story behind that picture. And that was the last question. Why don't we do a shout-out before we get out of here, shall we? I love doing the shout-outs, and this week is a good one. The shout-out goes to my friend Varmint Coyote. Varmint Coyote has an awesome YouTube channel. He's done some videos recently deconstructing conspiracy theories, or at least responding to conspiracy theorist questions and challenges. And it's been really good work, and it's especially valuable when Varmint Coyote does it because he is a former conspiracy theorist, or if not a full-blown conspiracy theorist, at least someone who has been very sympathetic to conspiracy theory thinking in the past himself. And he has since changed his mind on these things and changed his thinking. So he is a really interesting guy to watch if you go back and watch some of his older stuff and then watch his more recent stuff to see how he has changed his thinking. And to his great credit, he has not tried to hide the old videos. He hasn't taken things down or denied that he used to be a conspiracy theorist. He's very upfront about it, very open about it, and he now because he has done that and he's left that part of himself open for review, he can explain to you why he doesn't think that way anymore. And that's what makes him so cool and so smart and so honest. And so for that reason, if you want to see why the kind of thinking that conspiracy theorists often fall prey to is illegitimate and should be avoided, his channel is a great resource for that, because you can see what he used to think, you can see what he thinks now, and you can see what the difference has been. So a great channel, Varmint Coyote, and quite a beard. Let's be honest, that's the real reason he's getting the shout out this week. He's got a hell of a beard, and we stick together, us bearded fellas. So Varmint Coyote, awesome channel. That is it for this week. You had to ask. I will be back to do this again next week, provided, of course, that you ask me lots of questions that I can answer. So if you have a question for me for next week, leave a comment on this video asking your question, and I will get to it if I can. And for those of you that are interested, I actually shoot these videos usually on Thursday afternoon, thereabouts. So if you want to make sure that your question gets in front of my eyeballs in time to be in the next video, leave your comment, you know, by, let's say, Thursday morning. And I should have seen it when I'm compiling my questions, and you'll at least have a shot at getting into the video. I realize I hadn't mentioned that before, and I know some people leave comments like Friday morning when this fucking thing is done. There's no chance you're getting in if you leave a comment on Friday morning, unless you leave it for next week. So anyway, leave a comment on this video for your question, and I will get to it next week if I feel like it, because it's totally arbitrary, and I have no standard as to which questions I choose and which questions I don't. I just pick and choose. So that's it. I will see you next week. Have a good week. Fucking airplane.